The full episode is now available on Patreon and YouTube memberships. Please see the link in the description for more details.
Okay, speaking of orgies, House of the Dragon had season 2 had some early reviews come out, and yeah, I'm not saying they're bad, but they're very very lukewarm. Let me read off a couple of these for you. Here's from
Yeah.
IndieWire, which, by the way, before I go into that, let me just let the audience know. A lot of reviewers, a lot of these websites, whatever, they got some of the episodes early. I think they got 4 episodes early. And sometimes HBO will lift the embargo on the reviews like a couple days before the actual premiere. And sometimes when HBO or any other network is really confident in the product, they'll lift the embargo on the reviews weeks or even a month before it comes out. So that's what HBO did here. HBO was really confident in season 2. This is what IndieWire had to say. Thus far, Season 2 has had a hard time escaping its own trappings. The plot lurches forward, the characters focus on what we've already seen. New developments on either front do little to raise our curiosity. For those who want to tune in and be rewarded with exactly what they expect, and perhaps that's enough. There's room for innovation, even if it's just seeking what a few of the show's ideas on repression and revolution would look like. Let Alicent fight the patriarchy, lend the battles significant consequences, and stop it with Sir Christian Cole already. The collective joy of having a shared Sunday night TV experience is rare these days, and House of the Dragon Season 2 should be able to maintain our cumulative interest. Undoubtedly, the second half will have more cooking than the first. It might even include some fun, but that's not an excuse for keeping 4 episodes on a slow simmer.
So here's some, and I don't know if this is necessarily related. I mean, this might be the reason, but I think that Ryan Condal is spinning straw to gold in that the source material is horrible. I don't think the source material is good. Now I know that some people like Fire and Blood and all that, but like what I'm saying is that there are some structural problems that are going to make the story not work. And I don't know if they can be overcome. And I think one of the major problems is you establish the story as Rhaenyra and Alicent's story.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. And it's and this is back in the source material. It was The Princess and the Queen. And there is a prequel about the two characters, and the Rogue Prince, becoming enemies. And then when the Dance of the Dragons happens, well, neither character does anything. You know? They are separate from each other, and they do very little until Rhaenyra's like conquest of King's Landing. So that is a structural problem. If you have set up two characters that are antagonistical towards to each other, who are supposedly the main characters, and they both do very little, and they never have a chance to interact. And that is a big structural problem. Now, granted that, maybe it'll be a simmering thing, and then they'll eventually interact, but it's not going to be for a while, not down the road. The other thing is you have a bunch of like characters that are unrelated, and their issues and problems are unrelated, who face off, and there is no cathartic release because these characters have nothing to do with each other. So now, first season, yeah, I mean, Aemond and Luke had a history. Of course, so like them meeting each other and facing off like works. But when I talk about what's going to happen in season 2, and you say, "Oh, Rhaenys and Aemond and Aegon," like, yeah, they're going to face off. But like, why should anyone care about Rhaenys versus Aemond and Aegon? Like, what do they have? How are they? How are they related at all? Why should I care about that fight? We know where this is all heading. We're all heading for the Aemond versus Daemon fight. That's the climax of the war. Two characters that never interact, really. Like that. Their fight with each other means nothing. I mean, emotionally speaking, like obviously, like, and so there's a lot of these like face-offs that just don't mean anything because those characters have nothing to do with each other. And that's George's fault. It's George's fault. But we'll see. we'll see if Ryan Condal can do something with it. I think he can. I think Ryan Condal has proven that he will improve the source material, but there's only so far you can go when there is a structural problem. I mean, one of the big problems that people had with the end of A Game of Thrones was the fact that Arya versus the Night King and Jaime versus Euron. And everyone's like, these are the wrong characters facing each other. This was everybody's complaint. And the Dance of the Dragons is just that. It's the wrong characters facing each other for the entire war, So
it's funny you mention Alicent and Rhaenyra because, once again, those two characters, we've mentioned this before, I'll say it here again, they aren't there in the open, at least in Fire and Blood, for the opening stages. But according to GameSpot, the season is anchored by Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook's performances as Rhaenyra and Alicent, respectively. The second season does a good job of highlighting how two women, two mothers, would approach impending war. They're conflicted with doing what is best for their own, while also being aware of the potential bloodshed.
And this is Ryan Condal like changing the source material to make it more interesting. Mm-hmm. I do think that that's a fascinating thing, paralleling these two women who are going through similar experiences on both sides of the, I don't know, it's not exactly straits, but on both sides of the bay. But here's the thing: is like that's not the source material at all. Like in the source material, Alicent is the one orchestrating everything before power is stripped from her by Aegon. Like, she's a warmonger, and Rhaenyra does nothing. Like she's injured and from childbirth and does very little. And her and Jace and Daemon and others kind of take control. So like even this like fascinating like storyline that they're talking about, that's Ryan Condal, because the source material kind of fails in this respect. So
they actually did improve on, according to this, they did improve on something that you had complained about in season 1. The article here says, House of the Dragon makes a lot of improvements on season 1, including when to cut the camera away from the most brutal violence. Blood and cheese, I'm assuming. This series is still not for those with a weak stomach for blood, but the creative team clearly took note of how explicit things need to be after the series premieres traumatizing medieval C-section. It makes it easier to enjoy the show when you don't have to pause to ask yourself, what the hell did I just watch? Improvements are great, but there's still room for growth. The production team still has not figured out how to light scenes in the dark. Oh my god. So be prepared to watch crucial moments of the season with your house completely dark, blinds drawn, and the brightness on your television all the way up. The great news is that the most climactic moment of the early episodes, which at HBO's request we can't reveal, is a daytime scene, so there's no ambiguity when the chaos begins. I'm assuming that would be Rook's Rest, which we saw
Rook's Rest,
from the trailers. So there it is. They're obviously with blood and cheese. I would argue that that type of brutality rivals the Red Wedding, maybe more, but we're not going to get full on infanticide here. So,
well, this is what makes Halloween 3 such a striking movie with people. You familiar with with Halloween 3?
No.
People really remember this horror movie because it's not a good movie. But it really crossed the line at this one moment. The plot of it is about this company that is marketing Halloween masks, and everybody is buying these Halloween masks from Silver Shamrock Company. And so the hero investigates, and he gets to the factory, and they have a test room. And in the test room, there's a family, like mom and dad and like a child, like a kid. And he puts on the mask, and they keep saying, oh, on Halloween we're going to show a special message, so make sure you wear your mask. And he puts on the mask and he watches the special message, and then the mask like welds to his face and kills the little child. It crushes his head, and then out from his skull come a bunch of like snakes who then like kill the parents. It's like very violent scene
and creative. Holy shit!
The fact that like you're seeing this, and these are the stakes that, oh my god, like on Halloween, like the whole world is going to get broadcast this this message, and all these kids are gonna die, and these evil snakes are gonna kill the parents and everything.
This is Halloween
It's gonna be
3?
chaos.
The Michael Myers movie?
It's not Michael Myers. Well, it's the one movie that's not about Michael Myers. So it has nothing to do with the rest. It's a weird movie. It's called Season of the Witch, and there's no witches in it either. But but everybody remembers it because it's like, oh my God, you have this like brutally violent scene of like killing a child. And so people just kind of remember it for that scene alone. But yeah, it's just something that, you know, generally people shy away from killing kids on camera. But that one movie did not. You know, so.
Yeah, I need to watch that one scene. Holy shit. That sounds insane. Like, when did this come out? In the 80s?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
What's really weird about the movie is there are other scenes where the camera pans away to not see the violence. And you're like, why would you pan away for that scene when you already showed a child getting murdered? Like, yeah.
The GameSpot author here says something I think is incredibly dumb because, like, I feel like that this author is going out of his way, this writer is going out of his way not to understand, like, this is a prequel. Because he says here, while you're trying to remember the differences between Jacaerys, Rhaenyra's heir, and Viserys, Rhaenyra's father, Alicent's husband, House of the Dragon also wants you to never forget that winter is coming. And the wall up north is keeping out something far more sinister than wildlings. The phrase, A Song of Ice and Fire, which is the name of the book series all the characters are based on, is muttered multiple times. The problem is, we already know how A Song of Ice and Fire pans out. We spent better part of the decade watching it unfold, so it's baffling why House of the Dragon keeps treating it like it's a secret or an eventual battle that this particular series will address. Well, it's a prequel, like, the characters don't know what's going to happen or when the White Walkers are going to come.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
I mean, and to be fair, like Game of Thrones, like introduced a bunch of mystical elements that were not addressed by its series too. But I mean, I would say that like the whole prophecy stuff is just kind of frosting on the cake. Like we kind of all know it's nothing. It's just to give kind of atmosphere. You know, it's true that it's not going to go anywhere, but
to give atmosphere and urgency to Rhaenyra's
to
cause.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, it's more for those characters and their motivation than for us. Like, ooh, what does it mean? You know, we know what it means.